Yup, here we are, back again with talking about every episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, Part 3. So this time, we are going into the realm of CGI, talking about seasons 13 through 18, the first half of the CGI era, every Sharon Miller season, and the first two Andrew Brenner seasons. This is gonna be good, so strap in and let's get ready to talk about... Oh my god! Here we are! The CGI era! Is Thomas ruined forever? This episode's actually not that bad. Cranky wants to prove how strong he is to Thomas by hauling heavier and heavier loads, and then he ends up carrying Thomas and it doesn't go too well. Shockingly, I didn't mind this episode too much. It's definitely nothing mind-blowing, but the CGI is kind of nice looking, and Thomas and Cranky really carry this. They're really fun together here. Surprised how solid it is. I'm hoping the rest of the season's this watchable. Thomas needs to deliver a lion statue, but he thinks it's a real lion, so he feeds it, and, well, the lion looks like trash afterwards. Thomas's driver literally pours this stuff into the box where he can see the lion. Bad episode. Looks like we're right back with seasons 8 through 12. James needs to be repainted. However, Topham needs James to pick up his granddaughter for her birthday. However, he has to go around in his pink undercoat and doesn't want to be made fun of by everyone. I guess it's neat that they go over the concept of an undercoat, but other than that, this episode's just really boring. James is afraid to get smack talked, but doesn't everyone talk smack on this island? What a boring episode. Thomas needs to pick up Sir Topham Hat and Lady Hat for a party. However, he sees a mustached version of Topham, and confusion and delay is caused by him. It isn't until he asks, he realizes, hey, that's Sir Topham Hat's twin brother? What a random thing to introduce this late into the show. Anyways, this episode sucks. Thomas just doesn't speak out. That would have immediately solved this conflict, but no, he doesn't want to look silly. Definitely one of the weakest of the season so far. This episode has a scene where Thomas is missing his funnel. This is terrifying. Thomas has to get a new funnel because his old one is broken. Then he has to deliver bubble liquid for Mr. Bubbles. However, it keeps splashing out of the barrel, and it's up to Topham and Mr. Bubbles to warn him about it. It's just so uninteresting. This is definitely my least favorite one yet. It's just so mindless to watch. Thomas just splish and splosh the bubble. I really liked seeing Topham and Mr. Bubbles in the car, but other than those scenes, which were a little interesting, this one is just really boring. Thomas is sent to take out mail for the day, however, he doesn't know how to do it, even though he did it 12 episodes ago, and he causes everyone to wake up way too early. Yep, another Thomas messes up a job episode. I'll say at least visually, I actually think this episode is really good looking, and the plot feels loosely nostalgic to an old Thomas episode-ish, but it's not that good. Though I would probably call this my second favorite episode under Creaky Cranky. I hope that changes though. This episode's really not that great. At best, it's just mediocre. New season, new character. Here we have Charlie, one of the most insufferable characters in the franchise. Charlie loves having fun, but he doesn't think Thomas is very fun, so Thomas desperately tries his hardest to be a fun engine, but starts getting late to delivering Alicia body. Annie and Clarabelle end up getting uncoupled, and he leaves them behind. Remember when Annie and Clarabelle were characters and not props? Anyways, this one sucks. Charlie's incredibly annoying, and Thomas is as dumb as usual. Definitely one of my least favorites of the season. I just want one good one. Thomas needs to get some straw for some baby pigs, but he thinks they might like other things than straw. It turns out the baby pigs wanted the straw. Who would have guessed? What a dumb and boring episode. A pig gets named after Thomas. Cool. One of my least favorites of the season. So boring. Thomas has to deliver books for some students and the teacher. However, he takes a shortcut because he thinks it's going to make his job easier. But, oh no, it's actually very dangerous and it causes a derailment of the books, and Thomas finds some arbitrary way to fix his own mistake. I am only halfway through this season and I'm sick of talking about it already. Nothing interesting happens in any of these episodes. It's so boring. Finally, another non-Thomas episode. Percy has to deliver a present for Dowager Hat's birthday, and he really wants Mavis to see the present. However, she doesn't because she's actually busy doing an actual job, and things get messed up. Yup, just another stock episode right here. I like that Mavis has a slightly bigger role in an episode than usual, but other than that, this episode is the definition of it exists, alright. Toby's bell is broken, so he gets a 3-chime whistle to replace it, and he gets scared every time he uses it. This is just a really dumb episode concept, and really, they don't do anything with it at all. I guess it's neat to see Toby with a whistle, I guess. Boring episode, though. Emily has to bring flowers to Knapford Station, but when she sees Mavis sad, she tries to bring them to the quarry, but then things go awry, and it's a really boring episode. Emily is just not interesting here. She's really obsessed with flowers. If anything, there was actually a funny bit with her.
I know all about flowers. I know that buttercups are yellow.
Emily!
But a blooming mess? More like a boring mess. Thomas is delivering a trophy to a kite fair, and he sees Stephen and Bridget Hat playing with their kite. However, Stephen Hat is a very dumb kid and just lets go of his kite, and now Thomas has to chase after it. He ignores help from his friends, but then he realizes, hey, they're gonna help me find this kite. So what was gonna happen when they got close? They don't have hands. This is just brain dead and dumb. He's just chasing a kite for 8.5 minutes. Why did this warrant a whole episode? One of my least favorites, for sure. Victor is going to see the other narrow gauge engines in Mr. Percival. I wish that's the episode we got to see, but instead we get to see Thomas in charge of the steamworks. And lo and behold, he doesn't know how to run it, and everything goes wrong. Just another dumb episode about engines in charge. And it sucks all these episodes have to be so lame, because the production value is pretty good, and I love the music, and generally I feel like there's so much potential in all these episodes. The writing kills it though, everyone's just so unlikable. It's a muddy day on the island of Sodor, and Thomas splashes mud on everyone and causes confusion and delay like usual. So, Thomas, whatever happened to the branch line? I kind of miss that location. This episode's really dumb. It's just Thomas playing in the mud for 8 minutes straight. There's a slightly funny visual gag of Topham covering Alicia body with his hat. That was kind of funny. But other than that, this one sucks. Probably my least favorite so far. Hiro returns from Japan back to Sodor, and he's thrown a party. Thomas forgets to tell everyone about it. No one comes to Hiro's party, and then he tells everyone about it. It was that easy to fix it, huh? Such a nothing episode. I guess it's cool to see Hiro again, but other than that, this episode's really boring. Oh sweet, an episode that looks a little different from the rest of them. Gordon is given a special and he has to traverse through the snow. However, later on, Thomas ends up getting stuck in the snow and Gordon has to help him. This is actually a watchable episode from this era. It's nothing mind-blowing, but the snow aesthetic definitely helps this one stick out more, and Thomas and Gordon have a fun little bromance here. I actually enjoyed this one within the confines of Season 13. It's still got dumb stuff, but it's more watchable than the rest. Henry sees Thomas do good deeds, so he wants to replicate them, but oh no, Henry does them wrong and he needs to make up for it. Just such a nothing episode again. I honestly just wish more stuff would happen in these. With the 8-minute increase, you'd think more would go on. Thomas has to deliver some bees to Farmer Trotter, and Hero warns him how to handle them, but Thomas, of course, doesn't listen, and do I even need to keep going? Isn't it obvious what's gonna go on? It's a bad episode like usual, and it's got bees in them too, and I hate bees. Definitely one of my least favorites. It's just so empty, and also bees. They just suck. I hate them. Oh wow, Hero's getting an episode. I like that actually. Too bad the episode's awful. Topham is feeling overworked, so Hero just feels like putting himself in charge, I guess, and telling everyone what to do, except, oh no, he's not a good controller because he's a train. I'm getting so sick of these plots of the engines being in charge for the day. It's just such a boring and slow episode. And I'd probably call this my least favorite of the season, probably my least favorite of the show so far. Just for the fact it wasted the potential of making a good Hero episode. What a shame. So season 13 sucked. I don't think you could tell by the review. Okay, in all seriousness though, this season was super boring. Season 12 was already really bad and tiresome to sit through, but at least a lot of the episodes were like overly bad. This is just so dull. I honestly can't imagine making a worse season than 12, but here we are. Every character is somehow even less intelligent than last season. Every plot is a lot more brain dead, and in general, everything just feels so automated and wooden. Yes, the later seasons were a lot more flawed too, but I'd at least say there was some life sparked into some of those weaker episodes. But here, I don't feel any life in any episode this season. It's all just so wooden. I can see why when I was younger I ditched watching the show at this point. This was the last season I saw any of as a kid before I just ditched watching Thomas until like season 20 came around. But hey, this is the first CGI season. Maybe it'll get better with 14. So let's just go into season 14 and at least hope it's a little more interesting. Also, before season 14 came out, we had Misty Island Rescue. Movie's not good, but we're not going to review it here. Anyways, so it introduced the logging locos who are going to pop up like halfway through. And we're going to get Captain the Sailboat, but I mean, am I ever going to even mention his name in this ranking besides this point? Well, let's see. Let's just go into 14 now. Thomas is sent to get a giraffe from Brendam Docks. However, he does not get the giraffe keeper, so the giraffe refuses to sit down when he needs him to go under a bridge. Yup, and you could kinda see where this is coming. He messes with his friends, and now he won't wake up, and it's so boring and mindless. This is easily the show's worst premiere so far. One of my least favorites in the whole show at this moment in time. And we just started the season. James is sent to pick up Alicia body for a concert, but it's dark out and he needs a lamp. He doesn't want to wear it though because it makes him look silly, and he messes up the job. This is just such a brainless one. There's 2 instances of James not being able to recognize Thomas or Edward's voices, even though he's known them for how long at this point. And then there's parts where Farmer McCullough and Farmer Trotter just get on his train. Like, why would they be going with him? Terrible episode, easily the worst of the season so far. And we're only on episode 2. I'm really hoping this one picks up. Sodor's football team is preparing for a game, and all the engines are given jobs. Emily is given the job of taking the football team's laundry. This is a real episode written by a real person. Other than the questionable sexism, this one is just really boring. Nothing interesting happened in it. Better than the last one, but worse than the first one. Still, none of these have been worth watching so far. Charlie claims that Edward is no fun, so Edward tries to prove... What's with this sense of deja that... Oh, that's right. Charlie's debut episode was about that. Just Thomas was the one who was trying to prove he was fun to Charlie. Yeah, this is a bad one. It's just ripping off Playtime, an episode I already don't like. Toby is afraid of the Whistling Woods and doesn't want to ask Thomas and James for help to go through it because he's old and doesn't think he needs it. This is just terrible. What happened to the Toby that could brave a flood or cross a collapsing bridge to save some baby lambs? Easily the worst in the whole show so far. This one is so irritating. Henry crashes into a truck and becomes more cautious. However, his caution ends up causing confusion and delay. This is the start of Henry becoming a worrier. At least it makes a little more sense here, but this episode is still really dumb as it feels like things just happen. Going near the bottom, I did not like it at all. Oh wow, an episode about Diesel. That's kinda cool. So what's he gonna do? He's upset that the children don't like him as much as James Pig, so he tries to get other work to make himself look cool, but realizes the job he was doing was worth doing all along. It's a very boring episode, but it's the best of the season so far. Probably only because Diesel stars in it. But also, there's this very questionable moment.
Never clapped and cheered. That's because you are a Diesel.
Like, wow, James. That's very, racist. Thomas is given the task to deliver soda. However, he hears a popping sound he likes and ruins the soda and needs to learn not to rush for like the 50th time now. Nothing to say about this one, honestly. I'm really struggling to find anything new to say. A large number of engines are breaking down on the island of Sodor. Victor wants to say he can fix all of them, but the work is too much for him, and he needs to say enough is enough. Meh, it's kind of boring. I appreciate the fact they at least tried giving Victor an episode, but literally nothing happens in this one, which means it is one of the better episodes of the season. How sad. An inspector is coming to the island of Sodor, and Thomas is put in charge of working at Brendam Docks. He takes Percy and Mavis away from their jobs to help work, but oh no, it ends up all going south. It's just their handle in charge again, which was just the green controller again. Why does Topham keep putting his engines in charge of work? It's never proven to go well. Terrible episode. Moving on. Percy is tired of not being seen, so he tries to act like Gordon to be seen and causes confusion and delay. It's not very good. It's not the worst the season has to offer. In fact, it's probably the best of the season. But it's nothing special, but I do at least appreciate seeing another Percy and Gordon-ish episode again. It's watchable. Thomas is given the job of delivering the star to Knapford. He wants to bring the star to all of his friends, hoping they can have wishes. Unfortunately, things go awry. It's just kind of boring. It's not the worst, but I never will think about this episode again. Some kids are sad that their snowman doesn't have a hat, so Thomas goes around stealing hats for them and forgets to pick up a package for Topham. Yes, we're really at this point. Thomas is barely punished too. It feels like no consequences are given for this. It's a very bad one, and it's also just really boring. Moving on. Oh god, this is the point where the logging locos start popping up in episodes. Thomas has to train the logging locos in how to be really useful, but oh no, Percy really wants to play with him at the same time, so he tries to do both, but can't manage the time. I'm so tired of these two playing games and stuff. Like, I get that this is a show for little kids, I'm not arguing that, but they're not characters who need to act like parody versions of what kids are like. This episode's just annoying. Thomas and Percy just suck as a duo now. One of the worst of the season, in my opinion. Thomas and Edward are sent to get Joby Woods from Misty Islands. Bash, Dash, and Ferdinand offer to help, but Thomas doesn't take it. It sucks. Thomas is just really annoying in this one, and I just feel sorry for Edward, who's stuck on the Shake Shake Bridge. Another terrible episode to add to the season. New toy character Scruff is introduced. Thomas wants him to get clean to make him really useful, so Scruff hides, and Thomas has to find a way to get him out. Literally nothing happens in this whole episode. It's one of the most boring yet. Gordon is put in charge of Whiff's waste dump. I guess the express just doesn't have any passengers today. But he doesn't want to be seen by anyone, so he hides and doesn't get work done. I love how Topham just has this big blue express engine, and the only thing he can think to do with him is make him pull around garbage all day. Gordon's supposed to be the beacon of hope during the bad seasons. What happened? This episode sucks! Thomas brings Dowager Hat to Misty Island to have fun. However, Thomas is being a bit of a fuddy-duddy and having no fun with Dowager. This episode's kind of weird. Like, they're on Misty Island for almost all of it, but the logging locos are nowhere to be seen. Not complaining about that, though, because this episode, kind of decent, actually. Dowager Hat's a pretty fun character, and her interactions with Thomas aren't too bad. I surprisingly didn't mind this episode. It's not super good or anything, but it's less bad than usual. That deserves a compliment. The logging locos want to throw a Christmas party. However, they don't ask for any of the main engines for help, even though they were being such a stickler about it and jumping Joby would. But hey, and the party is a disaster. I don't like the logging locos, so this episode does absolutely nothing for me. I'm happy to see them fail. One of my least favorites yet, it's so boring. Henry is getting a box for a winter holiday party. However, he doesn't realize trees are in it, so when it disappears, he thinks it's a magic box. Just why? This is such a dumb concept for this show. Like, Henry really thinks a box is alive? It's just too much for me. Without a doubt, one of my least favorites of the whole series, and a very bad way to end what has been the worst season so far. That was the new worst season of the show. Yup, it topped the last season pretty easily. Not a single episode in here was really all that significant. I think you could tell I was breezing through a lot of them, but that's because there was so little to honestly say. The substance is non-existent, and every episode in here was just so empty to sit through and mindless. Like, the best episodes, I want to make clear, will not be going very high in the overall ranking for this season, because there barely were any bests. There were like 2 in here I thought were, I guess, mildly watchable, and then the rest of these are like the series' worst. Yeah, in general, season 14 is definitely the worst season so far. Really nothing about it stuck out. Let's just hope season 15 is maybe a little better. In between, or technically it released after, but we're talking about this in chronological order, Day of the Diesel's released. Movie's horrible, but you gotta know that characters Fiery Flynn, Belle, Paxton, Norman, Den, and Dart are all gonna pop up in the next season. Please let season 15 at max just be watchable. Great to know that season 13 starts with 3 episodes about the logging locos. Yay. Gordon has to take the Lion of Sodor with Ferdinand, but he doesn't want to be seen with Ferdinand, so he intentionally takes routes that would make it harder to be seen with him, but oh no, the Lion of Sodor falls into some mud, and he has to learn that Ferdinand is useful, and I guess it wasn't the worst episode in the world, but it really didn't do anything to make me like Ferdinand more, so I guess it's just more of the same from the previous season. Yay. Toby and Bash start working together. However, Toby thinks Bash needs a brand new home, but after failing to find a new location, he realizes he just wanted to live on Misty Island the whole time. Toby is just extremely unlikable in this episode. It's like, dude, just listen to what Bash has to say. Definitely my least favorite so far. Emily wants to whistle like Dash. Yup, that was an episode. It was cool to see Trevor again. Not the biggest Trevor fan, but it's something classic-y. The best part about this episode was it was the end of the Logging Loco trilogy. Thank God. Maybe it'll start picking up. Percy is sad because no one wants to play with him. Does he not have any jobs? But then he goes into the forest and finds creatures he tries to befriend, but oh no, he's way too loud with them. Percy is just so obnoxious in this episode. Like, he's not plucky or fun anymore, he's just annoying. This episode doesn't even feel all that Thomasy. Probably my least favorite of the whole show so far. I couldn't stand this one. Percy's so annoying. Edward goes around the island wanting to do good. He feels like he's not doing good enough, but everyone assures him he is. It's fine. It's definitely not a horrible episode or anything. It was nice to see the engine actually help people instead of just causing 3 mistakes, but it's not super interesting. Still, it's the best of the season, no question. James starts working at the Sodor Search and Rescue Center alongside Toby. He doesn't think he's helpful, but when he tries to save Gordon in the most stupid possible way, he learns how helpful of an engine Toby is. This episode is really dumb, but my god, it's actually pretty funny. Every leap in logic made in this episode does kind of get a laugh out of me, and James stupidly trying to save Gordon does make me laugh when he gets crushed. Probably my second favorite.
I am the silliest and muddiest engine.
Hero is sad because he misses Japan. I don't know why he doesn't just go back, so Thomas brings him to Misty Island to try to cheer him up. Why are the logging locos being used so much this season? Shouldn't they have been used a lot more last season, considering it released the same year as Misty Island? Anyway, this episode is boring. Nothing happens in it. I don't know. I'm running out of things to talk about at this point. It is hard to believe I'm at up, and away at this point. Thomas and Percy have to deliver a balloon to a fair, but oh no, inconveniences consistently happen, and Thomas takes the stupid route of listening to Percy. This episode is just so brain dead. It's one of the worst in the whole show. I feel like I'm saying that a lot now, but everything in this series has become so mindless at this point. It's getting really hard to watch. A railway coal inspector is coming to the island of Sodor, and Henry has to take him around the island. However, he doesn't want to get bullied for using special coal, so he tries to use normal coal and realizes he doesn't work very well on it. I just got nothing to say. This episode, nothing happened in it. I guess I kind of like the ending of Henry embracing the fact he needs it, even though technically he shouldn't, but whatever. Other than that, though, this one's just kind of boring. Still, one of the better of the season, I guess. Oh boy, another Christmas episode. Thomas and Gordon are sent to Misty Come on. Thomas tries to get it to snow on Misty Island by singing, and just nothing interesting happened in this one. It is boring as sin. Easily one of their worst Christmas episodes. Oh boy, another Christmas episode. Thomas wants to set up a party at the steamworks for his broken down friends, but he doesn't tell Victor, and things go poorly. I don't know, nothing really interesting happened in this one either. I honestly wish I had more to talk about. This must have been the easiest episode to produce all season. Spencer tries to find the Duke and Duchess's summer house, but, well, it's a foggy day on Sodor, so he can't figure out his way around it. I don't think I need to say what the problem with this episode is. I feel like you can just look at this one. It's really hard to watch from, just a looking at it standpoint. Beyond that, though, it's just a standard season 15 episode, meaning it's bad, obviously, but the visuals really bring it down. Birdie's getting some focus for the first time since, season 2. He wants to see the sights Thomas usually gets to, so Thomas brings him on a flatbed. This is kind of like Thomas and Skarloey's Big Day Out, except it's in season 15, meaning it sucks. And Birdie keeps warning Thomas about, hey, I need to get Dowager Hat and her friends, but Thomas doesn't listen. He brings him to Misty Island, and they even cross the Shake Shake Bridge. Not a very good episode, but the idea alone really carries this one, so it's one of the best of the season, sadly. Thomas is given the role of rescue engine for the day, so he works with Butch? You mean that background tow truck who's done absolutely nothing in the whole show finally gets a speaking role? Don't get too excited though, this episode is really bad. He gets stuck to Thomas. Andy refuses to ask for help, but needs to learn he needs to get the magnet off. Bad episode, what do you expect at this point? Belle wants to befriend Toby because he also has a Belle. But Belle is wild and over the top, and Toby doesn't like that. And they just don't do anything interesting with these two characters together. There is no fun clashing or pairing. It's just boring. Kevin is put in charge of the Steamworks, but he wants to play Biff Bash Bosh with Thomas and Percy. So, as you expect, things go awry and he messes up the entire Steamworks. Hey, didn't we do this episode 2 seasons ago called Steamy Sodor? Just replace Kevin with Thomas. I'm really starting to realize how malleable all these plots are now. The most infamous of them all. Here we are at Wonky Whistle. Thomas's whistle isn't working right, so instead of just waiting at the Steamworks to fix it, he goes out to deliver the animals for Farmer McColl. But oh no, they all fly out as soon as he starts whistling. It's just as dumb as everybody says it is, mindless and bad, and there's nothing new to add. It's just a really bad episode. Maybe it's not as bad as some of these other ones, but it's still terrible, one of the worst. Topham gives Thomas a holiday special, but oh no, Percy is sad because he doesn't get to pull it. So Thomas says they'll work together on it later, but uh-oh, Thomas keeps covering Percy in snow and doesn't know where he is. I like that it reminds me of snow when Percy's covered in snow. Other than that, it's boring as crap. Thomas competes with the Diesels to see who can get the best Christmas tree. It's really not that eventful, but I will say it's probably the best Christmas episode of like the 4 we got this season. At least Thomas has like a fun dynamic with the Diesels a little bit, but still pretty lame. Also, why is Gordon going to Misty Island with the Express here? Finally, we're done with season 15. Flynn is going around the island looking for a blue engine on fire. He puts out Edward and Gordon, who are very obviously not on fire. This is just so dumb. Flynn's supposed to be like a heroic firefighter. Why is he this stupid? It's obvious they're not on fire and you're just wasting your water. Oh, not to mention this scene.
His firebox was on fire.
If that doesn't constitute worst episode of the series so far, I don't know what does. There's really nothing new I can say about season 15 that I didn't say about 14 or 13. It's just the same as those two, except 10 times worse, with even worse episodes like Fiery Flynn or Percy's Best Friends, all the Logging Loco episodes. It's just so brain dead and dumb to watch at this point. The Andrew Brenner era honestly can't come any sooner. These episodes are really not exciting to talk about at all, and it's just so brain melting sitting through these back to back. Unfortunately, we've got one more season just like this. I really don't have any hope for season 16, but maybe, just maybe, they might have learned looking back at these 3 seasons, and this one will be a huge improvement and at least be a little watchable. Oh my god, I really hope so. And in between, we got Blue Mountain Mystery, which was actually pretty good. But outside of Winston, most of the new characters either don't do anything or just don't appear at all in Luke's case, which is kind of weird. Oh, and speaking of that, we are getting the narrow gauge engines back, so that makes me hope this will at least be a little more interesting. Let's jump into season 16 and find out. Flynn... Another Flynn episode already? Really? He has a hard time driving on the road. I thought he was made to go on the road and rails, but okay. Charlie, the spawn of Satan himself, makes fun of him, and he doesn't think he should be on the road because of his wobbly wheels, so he goes on the rails, but oh no, he can't get close to Topham's shed that's on fire because it's on the road. Why is Flynn such an idiot? Like, this episode is better than his last, but not by much. This episode still makes him feel very unlikable and extremely incompetent at his job. Bad way to start the season. Old Wheezy isn't working right, and Thomas thinks Den and Dart can fix it, but for some reason doesn't bring both of them and brings them one at a time. Not relevant to the episode, but why is there so much focus on Day of the Diesels at the beginning of this season? Like I said last season, wasn't that the season before? Anyway, this episode's boring, nothing interesting happens at all, and the resolution is so obvious. Like, no crap, bringing them together would make sense. Come on, Thomas, you should be smarter than this. Dowager Hat is having a party, and Thomas is sent to take her and her special passengers. Instead of taking Annie and Clarabelle, though, he takes the Express to prove to Gordon he can do it. But surprisingly, the Express is way too heavy for him, so he leaves some of the passengers behind, and thus ruins Dowager Hat's party. It's very unremarkable. This whole season's been on autopilot for me so far. Though I will say this is probably the best episode, purely because I like the aesthetic of Thomas pulling the Express. That's the only reason it's at number 1 at the moment. Ooh, a scary episode. It's been a while since we've had one of these. Salty tells Percy a tale about the monster of Brendam. He tells all his friends about it, but when they see something, they all get scared. This one sucks. Everybody is incredibly annoying, and it's just so dumb. They see something that vaguely looks like a monster in the fog, but no, it's nothing scary at all. It's just, compared to all the other old scary episodes, this one doesn't have as much tension. Also, the twist at the end really sucks. I guarantee the target audience guessed this the second it happened. Definitely one of my least favorites of the whole show, honestly. Easily the worst of this season. I can't imagine it getting worse from here. I spoke way too soon about the last episode. This one is 10 times worse. Charlie wants to have fun with Henry, so he pretends to be a snowman, and Henry gets freaked out by it. I just don't know where they come up with this stuff. This is just such a dumb plot. And it doesn't help that all the characters are acting, well, I say dumber than usual, but in Henry's case, this has unfortunately become very normal for him. And considering I can't stand Charlie or CGI-era Henry, yeah, it results in an extremely horrible mixture of characters to make a brainless episode like this. I am praying this is the worst it gets. And the honor for most random title in the series goes to... A photographer is coming to the island of Sodor, and Thomas wants to be in more pictures than Gordon, so photobombs his friends and causes confusion and delay. I like the part where City of Churro popped up. On that pretty run-of-the-mill episode. Nothing special about it. The Duchess of Boxford wants to meet up with Lady Hat, and Thomas wants to take her. However, he doesn't want to come off as smelly while pulling Whiff's garbage train, so he takes shortcuts to make sure he's not as dirty when picking up the Duchess. However, he ends up causing a crash, and he needs to fix it while Whiff takes her. I liked seeing the beach return. It actually looks pretty neat in CGI. Other than that, though, this episode is really uninteresting. Nothing went on. Thomas toots crows around the island for Farmer McCall and causes confusion and delay. This is such a brain-dead episode. One of my least favorites of the whole show. It is just so mindless to sit through. Gordon delivers parts to the diesel works, however breaks his buffers on the way, so Den and Dart offer to fix him. Gordon is resistant to the idea, however after Den and Dart prove that they can fix him, he realizes how useful diesels can actually be. Shockingly, this one's kinda solid. It's not the best episode or anything, but I actually enjoyed the message of Gordon needing to put his prejudices aside and listen to Diesel's, and I also think it has good messages that people are equal regardless. Shockingly decent episode for this era, easily the best of the season so far. Diesel and Percy are tasked with taking some garbage that includes a calliope. Percy thinks it can still work and tries everything to get it done. He does it in admittedly dumb ways, like really he's gonna put coal in the calliope, but I won't lie, this one's actually okay. It's a little more in line with who Percy is normally of him trying to. It reminds me a bit of him trying to save old Slowcoach back in season 5, for example. It was nice to hear the original theme tune again. Shockingly alright episode. Wow, there has been 2 of these in a row. Let's see if they can keep the streak going. Thomas has to take a composer around the island of Sodor to find the sounds of Sodor. This episode sure happened. It's not bad by any means, but I got nothing to say. This was the only scene that stuck out to me.
Fat controller.
Man, everyone's just been fat-shaming Topham lately. Edward wants to get Salty a present. However, after Salty rejects all of his previous presents, what he learns is that Salty got the best present of all by being able to tell Edward his stories. I actually enjoyed this one. Edward feels like he's in character, Salty's twist at the end makes a lot of sense. It just comes from such an earnest place. Honestly, I'm impressed. Season 16's been kind of picking up in these past couple episodes. Maybe we got a pretty decent season here. Hey, remember what I said about the season picking up? I think I was wrong. This one's really bad. Thomas really wants to surprise Gordon on Sodor's surprise day, and desperately tries everything he can, but causes confusion and delay, and causes fireworks to go off in a crate. Why were they even lit? This episode sucks. I don't know why Thomas is so generally insistent that Gordon must have a good time on Sodor's surprise day, and it's just such an annoying one on his end. Also, the fireworks scene, just too much. One of my least favorites of the whole season. Emily wants to be the winter party engine, however Topham's hat blows away, and Emily thinks if she finds it, she'll be given the job, but doesn't go around finding it and instead boasts about getting the job that she doesn't have yet. I got nothing to say. This episode is super boring. James is tasked with bringing Farmer McColl's sheep to the fairgrounds. On his travels, he sees a muddy track, but he doesn't want to go down it, so decides to go along a bumpy track. A latch breaks on his wagons, and the sheep break loose. And James struggles to find them until he realizes he has to be muddy to go the right way. Just kind of a nothing episode. Like, it's not horrible, but man, season 16's become so uninteresting in these past few. Quick side note, the CGI is starting to get really good in this end portion of Nitrogen's run. They've been doing a really good job. Anyways, we have an episode about Whiff. He wants to be his grandest Spencer, so ignores his core job and tries to do other people's. But then after it causes confusion and delay, he goes back to collecting garbage and realizes he's as grand in his own special way. It's a pretty standard episode, not horrible, not great. It sure exists. Man, this episode just made me realize there was not a toy character episode last season. Spencer is tasked with showing new toy character Stafford around the island. However, he does not realize Stafford's an electric engine, so anytime he tries to introduce him, Stafford's battery already ran out before they made it to the location. It's boring. Nothing even mildly interesting happens. One of the most forgettable of the whole show. We're finally at the point where the narrow gauge engines return. It's like they forgot this season was supposed to tie in with Blue Mountain Mystery and just added 2 episodes as a bonus. Peter Sam is put in charge after Mr. Percival leaves for a meeting. Yup, character in charge episode. I'll say, however, this is probably the best one of these, mostly just because Reneus has some funny lines towards Peter Sam about it. That pretty average episode.
He needs Victor. No, Reneus. We mustn't bother Victor with little things.
It's Sir Topham Hatt's birthday, and Thomas is put in charge of Winston while Topham is away shopping. Winston tries to break away and look for the carriage that Topham used to ride in his youth, however Thomas doesn't believe he'll find it. But then the two do and restore it. This one's pretty solid. I like the lore it adds with Edward pulling him around on his birthday every year. It's kinda nice that they're just trying to do something sweet for his birthday. Pretty solid episode here, one of the best of the season. Fun fact about this episode, all the other episodes this season aired from February to March of 2012. This one aired on Christmas Day of 2012. Was the wait worth it? No. Toby brings Rheneas to Misty Island to try to find a Christmas tree for the Blue Mountain Quarry. Toby is very scared of being on Misty Island though, so Rheneas has to try to calm him. I don't really like this one, honestly. Toby is the sad whiner he always is in these CGI seasons, and Rheneas acts like a giddy 5-year-old. I also really don't get why Toby is so afraid of Misty Islands. He's been here in both Merry Misty Island and Toby and Bash. The fact I remember that is very sad. But all around, very weak end to Season 16. Season 16. I mean, it was an improvement on 15, 14, 13, and probably 12 if I really think about it. But by that, I mean it's not a 1 out of 10, it's a 2 out of 10. It's basically plagued with all the same problems, just nowhere near as bad. And I will say, compared to 15, which at least had a lot of really bad episodes, this one doesn't have as many. I mean, it's still full of them. You got Sodor Surprise Day and Ho-Ho Snowman in here. But, and even the better episodes in here, like Bust My Buffers, Salty Surprise, and Percy and the Calliope, are only really the best for this era's standards, and I wouldn't really call them, like, series best. But I will still admit this is an improvement and is the best season of CGI Thomas so far. But I have a strong feeling that's going to quickly change as Andrew Brenner takes over the show following the next season. And after this season came out, we had King of the Railway, a pretty alright special, but you gotta know that Stephen, Mille, Connor, and Caitlin, along with the Earl of Sodor, are gonna start popping up in the next season. So let's jump into Season 17 and see how this brand new take on Thomas with Andrew Brenner and Mattel and everyone else involved in the new production is gonna go. God, I am really hoping this is an improvement over these seasons. Wow, gotta say, visually, this is pretty strong. I think the scenery and environments are a massive improvement on what Nitrogen did. I think some of the engines look a little weird, but still, I absolutely love how this looks. Glad Ark did a good job here. So, Kevin is sent to work at Brendam Docks after Cranky is getting overwhelmed. Cranky initially isn't into Kevin's more cheery and optimistic demeanor, but as they start working together, Cranky starts to grow more attached to Kevin. And honestly, this is a pretty good episode to start with. Cranky and Kevin work off each other really well, and it's nice to see some new sides to Cranky. He's no longer just the angry guy. We see him get stressed and a little more anxious about his job. I really liked this one. It's without a doubt the best CGI episode so far. Good start to the season. Gruff is cleaned up at the steamworks. After being cleaned up, he wants to find a job that won't be dirty at the waste dump, but he can't get one, so just gets dirty and works at the waste dump yet again. It's a fine episode, it's not awful or anything, still better than the past few seasons, but it's pretty average. Scruff doesn't really seem like the character who can carry a whole episode to me. Also, Annie and Clarabelle spoke in this episode. This is the first time in over 100 episodes they've spoken. Why did it take so long? Winston is tired of Topham's poor driving, so he decides not to tell him to put his brakes on so that he can go out on his own, and he ends up going for the ride of his life. This is a really fun episode. It's been quite a while since we've had a runaway episode, and this one is extremely unique with having Winston as the main character, you know, as an inspection car. I also like that both Topham and Winston were in the wrong in this instance. It was really exciting and full of thrills. I enjoyed this one a lot. This feels like something I could have seen out of like season 3 or 4, honestly. But I will say at times, I think the way it's animated, it feels slower than how it's narrated. But this is ARC's first time doing one of these, so I'll give him a pass. Favorite of the season so far.
Stay where you are, Bertie! Don't move!
All right, I won't move then. I wonder for how long.
Gordon nearly crashes into Paxton. However, a little pebble hits Gordon's boiler and he starts leaking out water. He keeps taking stops with the express and it causes confusion. Not a bad episode. I like how simple it is, and the ending was really funny with all of them making fun of him. Good episode. Vickersdown Bridge is closed for repair, so Caitlin is stuck on the island of Sodor, and she needs to learn to calm down while doing Percy and Henry's jobs. The episode is okay. I liked seeing Sodor at night, but I felt like this one could be a bit much at times, and I felt like the moral was a bit too preachy, but it isn't bad, and I respect the fact they gave Caitlin a spotlight episode. It's alright all around. Stafford wants to be like a steam engine, so makes steam engine noises and causes trouble. This feels like a leftover Miller era episode. Granted, I'll say it's better than most of them usually are, but still, this one isn't really anything to me. My least favorite of the season so far. Stafford really can't carry an episode on his own. Henry and Hero are sent to take some trucks to Brendam Docks. However, after they're told they've gotten some bad coal, Henry decides he wants to wait until good coal comes in, but Hero is determined to make the delivery. After the delivery is completed, Topham asks them to do another delivery, but Hero can't do it without Henry and tries to push him to do it. Hero inevitably breaks down, but Henry is determined to do it after Hero was able to perform the other task. This is honestly one of the best episodes in CGI. Honestly, it might be one of the best episodes of the show, period. I like how both characters are presented as not being entirely in the right, and Henry's determination is really nice. It's good that Henry's getting a good episode again. It's been a while. If you were initially put off by watching the show in CGI, I recommend starting with this episode. I think this proves that the show can be just as good in CGI as it was in models. You know, though, I feel like I'm forgetting to mention something. Oh yeah, that duck guy returned, I guess. Cool. Luke finally makes his debut into the TV show proper, and in a very good episode at that. A deer is seen at the Blue Mountain Quarry, and Luke wants to take it in. The others know it's a bad idea, but they do try their hardest to make it accommodable for him. But Luke needs to accept that a quarry is not the right place for a deer. I really hate animal episodes in this show normally, but this is easily the best one of these kind of things. It's just so sweet, and it teaches an honest message about needing to let go of things sometimes. Second favorite of the season, I enjoyed it a ton. Wow, I'm impressed. 2 episodes in a row with no Thomas or the other Steam Team members. Like, this is so surprising to see. Anyway, this episode sees Luke and Millie switch places for the day. It's all I really have to say about the story, but it's fun to see how they would interact with each other's workplaces. I like it. Also, we get to see that deer from the last episode. That's sweet. Good episode. Charlie sees an elephant on the tracks, and he needs to start warning people and getting help. However, no one believes him because Charlie is all about making jokes. It isn't until he finds Harold, who actually does believe him, and he vows to stop making jokes, until he starts doing it again in the end. It's a fine episode. It's definitely the best episode with Charlie, but unfortunately Charlie is still a moderately annoying character. Still, it's okay. Thomas and Paxton are being silly on rails. Paxton overhears that Thomas quote-unquote lost his puff, which means his fire went out, but Paxton thinks he actually lost Puff and goes around looking for it. It's fine, I guess, but nothing really interesting happened. It sure is an episode that exists. We are on the 400th Thomas episode, and we even see a model picture of Duck. I really liked that. Oh, speaking of which, this is an episode about Duck. That hasn't happened since, like, Fish way back in season 4. So him and Thomas have to take Harold to the Sodor Search and Rescue Center to get repaired, but Thomas shows Harold around the island and causes a little confusion. However, Duck then tries to go the Great Western Way, and that doesn't end up working out either, so Thomas presents his own way. Seeing Thomas and Duck pair up together was really fun, and seeing their different ways of approaching the same situation was really entertaining, and I like that it didn't present either as being right or wrong exclusively. Great way to celebrate 400 episodes. James tells a spooky story about the Phantom Express, and Percy starts to feel scared. And then Stephen also starts to feel scared. And then somehow James starts to feel scared, even though he's playing a trick on them. Okay, this episode is really dumb. This one never really got off the ground for me, unfortunately. It's just kind of a standard kids show scary episode. It's not as cool as some of the older ones. I feel like maybe it would have worked better if we didn't know the Phantom Express was fake, but oh well, meh episode all around. Bill and Ben return. Love to see it. Percy, after several misfortunate events throughout the day, starts to feel like he's the least lucky engine on the island. He goes to Stephen, who tries to give him a lucky horseshoe, but then Percy forgets to go with it, and he thinks he's getting lucky, but oh no, when he sees he doesn't have the horseshoe, he thinks he's unlucky. But he plucks up the courage and saves Bill and Ben even if his luck isn't there. I honestly always like a luck-based episode of any show, so thankfully this one appeals a lot to me. And I think it makes sense for Percy, considering all the crashes and accidents he gets into. And I love the ending where he has to make up his own luck no matter what. Great episode. Bill and Ben run into Connor. Thinking that he's a big show-off, they mess with him. That's all I really gotta say about the plot, but this one more than makes up for it by being very charming and funny. Bill and Ben really feel like themselves from like seasons 2 or 3 in this episode, with them playing tricks on a bigger engine. It honestly gives me a lot of the Diesel vibes. Very fun one here, and the ending where they're painted blue is really cool too. After being unsuccessful at stopping some fires around the island of Sodor, Flynn questions if he's really needed on the Search and Rescue Center team. However, when Belle is away protecting Ulfstead Castle, a fire happens at Brendam Docks, and it's up to Flynn to stop it. What is this? A good fiery Flynn episode? I didn't think that was possible. He actually feels like someone who's trying to be like an awesome hero instead of just the idiot we had for the last 2 seasons. His motivation makes sense here, you know. He's sad that he thinks he's not worthy of protecting the island of Sodor. And he redeems himself and proves that there's more than one needed. This is a shockingly good episode. I'm surprised. Thomas is tired of using his snowplow, like usual, so he decides to hide it. Unfortunately, he sees Emily having a lot of fun in the snow, and he wants to have fun with it too. It's very similar to Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow from Season 8, but unfortunately it's not as good. Honestly, it's pretty standard overall. Like, it wasn't bad or anything, but I didn't feel the conflict was too severe. The Earl of Sodor wants Topham to dress up as Santa Claus for a party. However, Topham is afraid of driving a sleigh, and while he tries to avoid it, a compromise does arise when Thomas has to save him after driving the sleigh. It's a charming Christmas episode here. I like seeing Topham actually have some fears, and having an episode about him was nice, and I really like Thomas's reindeer outfit. It's a really good one. I enjoy it. It has taken 407 episodes, but Diesel 10 finally pops up in an episode of the TV show, and he steals Christmas decorations. I sounded very mean about it, I know, but honestly, this episode's really not that bad. In fact, it's a pretty solid Christmas episode. It gives me very Grinch vibes, and seeing the Steam team work together against the Diesels was kinda neat. It's solid all around. Oh, and also, Sydney from Day of the Diesels finally does something. Percy brings in his wheels, and he becomes a pretty prominent character from here. The turntable at Tidmouth Sheds is frozen. Everybody has to find a place to sleep instead of Tidmouth Sheds. However, Gordon is not satisfied anywhere they go, so he does go with the one berth he can go into. The turntable starts working, but only for a little bit, and Gordon is stuck. This one's alright, I don't mind it too much. I like that it's a very simple story, and it feels like something I could see in Season 3. It's an okay one overall, and I like that Gordon is punished at the end by pulling Percy's mail train. Didn't mind it. The character Porter is introduced, and Salty becomes afraid as, with his poor working condition lately, Topham might replace him. However, after trying to get fixed in many ways, Topham assures him that Salty is as useful as ever and he just thought he needed some help. It's a really nice episode here. It's kind of sweet to see Salty's more vulnerable side again. It's been a while, and it serves as a good reminder why we all love Salty. It was also nice to see a flashback from Salty's secret way back in Season 6. This is a good one here, I enjoy it. Harvey returns, and with a starring episode no less. Bill and Ben make fun of Harvey's crane, and Harvey wants to prove he is useful as an engine. However, after an accident, he also shows that he's useful as a crane too. Honestly, it's a way better starring role than Harvey to the rescue. It really shows the value of a character like Harvey being both a crane and an engine. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. Stephen is consistently picking up juices and jams for the Earl of Sodor. However, because of how slow he is, this gets to the other engines, so they push him around to make him go as fast as possible. This ends up going to Stephen's head, however, as these thrills are something he keeps wanting to chase. And he needs to remember being efficient is way more important than being fast. I really enjoy this one. This shows that an old character like Stephen isn't above doing dumb stuff like this. And it really does a good job expanding on what he actually does beyond King of the Railways release. However, if I had one complaint, I can't stand the fact there's an animation error with Stephen's funnel the whole time. It's supposed to be white. But still, good episode. Henry dares James to take the flying kipper. However, James ends up refusing to do it and lying to Henry. Then everybody dunks on James about it for him to actually have to pull the kipper, and barring the smelly fish, it goes pretty well. This is a nice, really simple story in here. It's very fun to see James do a job he hasn't before, and everybody making fun of him is funny. I like it quite a bit. Though man, the flying kipper must be cursed or something. Diesel's been rallying up the trucks lately to be violent so that Hero will be violent towards them. However, Hero, being as nice as he is, refuses to do so, so Diesel tries everything in his power to make him rude to the trucks. This is a very fun dynamic between Diesel and Hero we've never seen before. The purest character on the island versus the roughest character. It's a fun one, I enjoyed a ton. Birdie has been rerouted and wins every race that him and Thomas have because he takes a shortcut. So Thomas in turn wants to take a shortcut of his own and it doesn't go very well. Very simple story, but really fun one. This feels like a season 3 or 5 episode, honestly. I enjoyed a ton. It was also nice to see Annie and Clarabelle have something to do in an episode again. Definitely a good way to end the season. Okay, wow. Talk about a massive glow-up. Season 17 was without a doubt the best season of Thomas in a long time. It beats all of the CGI seasons before it, and Hit Entertainment's previous model seasons. In general, this is a really good season. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a really great season. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy this one a lot. But I feel like the season's a bit too plain as a Thomas season. Like, with how bad the show has been up to this point, I totally get it. But I wouldn't put this over, like, the first 5 seasons. Heck, even 6 and 7 I think I like more than this one, to put it lightly. Being plain is definitely fine for this period of the show, but my biggest fear is that this is going to be how the show is from here on out. I'm sure it won't be, but we'll have to check in on the following seasons to see. But keep in mind, I still like Season 17. Good season. Just not the best one. And that's okay. I'm just glad to have something I liked watching again. So let's go into Season 18, which before it released, we also got the movie Tale of the Brave, which was amazing in my opinion. But we're not here to talk about the movie. So just know that Marion, Timothy, Gator, and Reg, I almost forgot him, all appear in the next season. So let's see how Season 18 is. We're back to the plot that Gordon doesn't value Edward. Again. Though, thankfully, this time around, I actually like this episode. Mainly because Edward actually takes charge. I also like seeing Thomas and Edward interact. It doesn't happen as often in this show as you think, and it's kind of fun to see them team up to make Edward actually get respect from Gordon for once. Thomas's trick was a lot of fun. This was surprisingly a really good premiere. I enjoyed it a lot. Hope more good ones like this to come along. Annie and Clarabelle are consistently complaining about Thomas's speed, so he consistently teases them about it. However, Thomas ends up becoming late for his duties at the quarry. He leaves Annie and Clarabelle in the shunting yard, where they get accidentally coupled to Caitlin's coaches, and the two go on the ride of their life. Now it's up to Thomas to chase them down and get them back. This is a really fun, fast-paced episode. It really shows you the bond between Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle a lot. And this episode really just gets going, too. Like, there is no stopping as soon as Annie and Clarabelle are attached to Caitlin's coaches. This is one of the greatest episodes in CGI in general. Probably my favorite of the season so far. Salty tells Thomas the story of the flatbeds of fear. Him, Henry, and Emily are all afraid of the flatbeds, and it kinda sucks, actually. It's the big problem that I've had with all the CGI horror episodes. There's just nothing scary about them. There is no sense of fear or eeriness like the model ones did. The CGI seasons have really failed to recapture that vibe. I just wish there was something to latch onto or think about while watching these, but they always want to make it clear that what's scary isn't real. If I had any compliments, I would say this is a better version of Percy and the Monster of Brendam. But considering I even made the comparison at all, I mean, do you really want to be compared to that episode? Diesel and the other Diesels play a prank on Paxton to hide and make it look like he's the only Diesel left on the island of Sodor. Diesel thinks it's a joke, however Paxton does not, and he's worried greatly. Later at Brendam Docks, Paxton and Diesel bump into each other, but Diesel tries his hardest not to be seen by Paxton. This is a fun one. I like it quite a bit. Paxton's just such a sweet character. It's very hard to dislike him. And Diesel's as mischievous as ever. It's a very fun duo. I liked this one a ton. It was a lot of fun.
I'm a truckload of sausages!
Toby can't read signals and becomes late for every job. Honestly, this episode just kind of sucks. Toby's the same worrier he always is at this point in the show, and there's just an aura of annoyance around this one. Not very good. The only real highlight is that Henrietta finally gains a face and actually is able to speak. They use her really well, I like that. Also, Ferdinand pops up in this episode. Didn't need to be reminded of Misty Island. Toad and Oliver return. Oh boy, we're finally gonna get to see what Oliver... ew! What'd they do to him? Oliver looks terrible in CGI. Thankfully, though, this episode is based on Toad, so we don't need to look at ugly Oliver. So Toad is tired of Oliver telling him the same story about how he escaped that fateful night with a lot of misinformation. And James desperately needs a brake van, and Toad suggests he'll go with him. James gets into an accident, and Toad has to brake hard enough to make sure he doesn't cause a crash with Thomas and Percy. This is a really good episode here that shows how useful Toad is, and I really like seeing him bounce off of James a lot, and James standing up for him in the end was really nice. This is a really great episode. It was worth Oliver's ugly design for this. Duck gets stuck in the water, and James has to rescue him, but he does it in a reckless fashion so that he can get his job done faster. Pretty standard James episode here. Not bad, but not great either. I feel like they could have done more with the Duck and James rivalry, but it's definitely one of the weaker episodes of the season so far. It's fine, though. Duck tells a story about slip coaches back when he worked on the Sunshine Railway. James tells Topham about it and gets to be the engine who pulls the slip coaches. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to pull them and things go wrong. This is a lot of world building for Duck's return, and I really like seeing it. Not to mention, Duck and James have a fun little rivalry here. Really good one all around, I enjoy it. Mavis is convincing Thomas to stay at the quarry to do her work while she goes out of the quarry for once to see the rest of Sodor. Thomas, getting fed up with how long Mavis and Diesel are taking to get back to the quarry, decides to just do a delivery on his own, which ends up not going his way. This is a really good one. I like it quite a bit. It's fun to see Thomas work at the quarry, and it's nice to see Mavis actually do something. She's in this show a lot, but she actually rarely does anything that noteworthy every season. And Diesel's a lot of fun in this episode too. Overall, a really good episode. On his branch line, Thomas runs into a bird watcher who's looking for a rare bird. Thinking the bird watcher saw it, he accidentally puts on the brakes, but that destroys Annie's wheels. Thus, Thomas is reduced down to only pulling Clarabelle. Thomas initially doesn't want to pick up the bird watcher the next time he sees him, but learns it's not the right thing to do. This is a pretty good one. It's nice to see Thomas actually work on his branch line again. For years, you forgot he even had one. And I like the message that doing the right thing is more important than getting petty revenge. Very good episode overall. This could honestly be a Christopher Audrey story, and I'd believe it. Duncan returns, and just like Oliver, he kinda looks terrible. Honestly, I actually think he looks way worse than Oliver, like, ugh. Thankfully, this episode is actually really good. Duncan has to take a grumpy passenger around the island, and tries everything to make him happy on his way. But Duncan then has to accept that he's just not going to make this guy happy. This is a really good episode, honestly. It's really interesting to see Duncan in this position of desperately trying to make someone happy, even though he's very rarely seen as the happy guy, constantly grumbling all the time, and needing to accept that, yeah, I'm just not going to be able to do it. Also, a lot of the visuals are beautiful in this episode. This is one of the best looking CGI episodes too. Great one here. While digging, Marion finds a water pipe and it starts leaking. Yeah, this episode definitely exists. It's not an awful episode, but there's really nothing to say about it. Easily one of the most forgettable in the show. Since the events of Tale of the Brave, Percy has been missing Gator. Trying to get his mind off it, he tries to just keep himself busy and work hard. But after losing some trucks after getting distracted and not being coupled up, he has to face his fears head on. Wow, what a great one here. It's nice to see them follow up on Tale of the Brave more directly, and I love the fact that Percy has really evolved from that movie, learning to face his fears head on. This is a really good episode here. An instant classic for sure. Go watch it if you haven't already. Bill and Ben forget to pick up some coal at Brendam Docks. They decide to make fun of Timothy for being the only engine in the clay pits to not run on coal. Eventually, they really need him to get the coal, and he gets it. It's an okay episode. I will say Bill and Ben feel a bit more extreme than they did in the classic seasons. Like, they seem a lot meaner than usual. But I don't mind too much, and also it has a nice resolution. Okay episode. Spencer is bringing a VIP to the island of Sodor. However, after some carelessness, he doesn't want to go home on Spencer. So someone on Sodor is going to have to bring him back. However, everybody really wants to show off, and in the end decides to go with Spencer anyways after an incredibly forced speech. This episode's really not all that good, honestly. Everybody just decides to rush their jobs because they're desperate for the attention, even though I feel like half of the people doing it know better. And Spencer's moral at the end feels extremely forced. Not a very big fan of this one, unfortunately. Okay, wow, this has got to be the most unique episode we've ever had of the show up to this point. This episode takes place during Tale of the Brave. That's really cool, actually. So Gator is bored being at Brendam Docks. However, Oliver breaks down and Gator takes his train. But then a problem arises with Gator's lamp, which isn't working the best, and he's tired of stopping to fix it every time. So Toad comes up with a bright idea to make things go well. This is a really good episode. Gator and Toad bounce off each other really well, and I love the way this episode is shot. Not to mention, I love the fact they even tried giving extra context to stuff that happened in Tale of the Brave a lot. This is just such a creative episode here, and Toad and Gator bounced off each other very well. Definitely one of the best. Gator returns for Christmas this year. Percy is excited when he hears the news that he's back and he wants to see him. However, the two keep missing each other until the very end with a sweet reunion. Honestly, this is just such a sweet episode of the two just trying to rekindle their friendship again and just wanting to see each other for the holidays. Not much more to say other than I really like this one. It's so wholesome. Connor is taking passengers through the snowstorm to make sure that everyone's home for Christmas. However, the snow is starting to pile up a lot, and it's a race to the end to make sure that everyone gets home on time through every engine clearing their way. This is just such a wholesome Christmas episode. Everybody working together to make sure the snow is completely removed so everybody can meet up with their families. Just with everybody being a team player and helping Connor get his job done, it's just such a wholesome Christmas episode. And honestly, it might be my favorite Christmas episode of the series. I love this one. It's Christmas time on the narrow gauge railway, and everybody's happy, except for Duncan. But he is excited when he hears Mr. Percival is offering to give all the engines a new coat of paint. However, Duncan has to be cheery all day for him to get it. This is a really good one. It shows how helpful Duncan can be, even if he can grumble quite a bit. Just gotta accept that's how people will be about things sometimes. Very sweet Christmas episode. Percy wants to make Reg's Christmas special, but he needs to realize it was special the way it was for him. Yeah, this episode's fine. It's not horrible or anything, but especially with the last 3 Christmas episodes being so good, this one will fall to the wayside. It's kind of forgettable. Not bad or anything, but just kind of eh.
Well, once I had to deliver a great big dinosaur skeleton.
Why would you choose to reference that episode? So Emily overhears everyone talking about their most special deliveries, and she realizes she's been super insignificant throughout this whole series. So she pulls a giant globe, hoping it's special. She tries to show it off to everyone, but oh no, the globe falls off her flatbed and goes around the island, and this episode is really dumb. I find this episode incredibly mindless to sit through. It was neat to see some of the references, but as soon as the globe starts roaming around the island, I just start losing interest in this episode. It's just too mindless for me. Definitely one of Season 18's weaker episodes. Bill and Ben trick Timothy into hunting for a rainbow truck, and what follows is a bunch of scenes of him looking for this truck. It's a pretty average episode for most of it, but the ending of him finding a waste dump truck with all the colors they requested is really funny, especially with that ending of the two complaining at the waste dump. It's an okay episode overall, though it's really saved by its ending. Marion thinks she sees dinosaurs. She initially passes it off as a dream, but then she sees them again in real life. But it turns out they're just for an attraction at the Earl's estate. It's a fine episode, but it doesn't really feel like anything happens in it. It's hard to really describe other than she's afraid and then she's not, and that's kind of it. Not bad, but it definitely is just an episode that exists. Oh wow, we get an episode about that engine who brought the Earl's dinosaurs, his name being Samson. That's neat. Samson is tasked with getting rocks from the Blue Mountain Quarry, however he's accidentally coupled to the Express and doesn't realize it. And anytime anyone tries to tell him, he's kind of a jerk about it. This episode's just really annoying. Samson's an extremely unlikable character, and he's just the worst character to follow for his own episode. The only part of this episode I liked was seeing Gordon Polanyi and Clarabelle. Other than that, this one's pretty bad. Scruff breaks down and he needs someone to take his job. Samson then takes it. However, he starts picking up stuff that isn't trash and putting it in the trash. So it's up to Scruff to stop him. This episode sucks. Samson is just still as annoying as ever and oblivious to the fact he's just the most unlikable and dumb character possible. It's a shame, really. I like the fact these episodes connect, but it's not a good character connecting them. Millie is upset that Samson calls her small, so she tries to get back at him. It's a fine episode, but nothing really significant about it. It's the best of the Samson saga, but I think that says more about the Samson saga than it does this episode. Okay, so I know I got pretty negative on Season 18 there by the end, but I want to make it clear, up until that point, Season 18 has been the best season of Thomas in a long time. It easily surpasses 17, which was already really good, and obviously surpasses Seasons 8 through 16. You can clearly tell they were experimenting a little more with reconnecting the episodes like they did in the first 4 seasons, or doing episodes that take place during the TV movie. The writing is just a lot stronger in general. It's a really strong season all around with some of the best episodes that CGI Thomas has ever produced at this point. Well, definitely not as good as the first 5 seasons. I'd easily put this over Season 6, and honestly, probably even 7 if I really think about it. I enjoyed the season that much. Granted, it still had a few clunkers like Signals Crossed or the Samson Saga. However, when you have episodes like Toad's Bright Idea, Toad's Adventure, Not So Slow Coaches, Old Reliable Edward, Last Train for Christmas, Long Lost Friend, Missing Gator, like, does it really matter if there's a few clunkers in there? The highs definitely outweigh it. Now it's time to jump into Season 19, and I can definitely say I'm really excited to jump into it because they've proven themselves worthy. Also, Lost Treasure and The Adventure Begins came out in between, or well, during Season 19, but they don't really affect the season, so I guess I don't really need to tell you what happens in those. So let's just jump into Season 19, I guess. It feels kind of weird not to tell you about the new characters now, huh? Back again with an updated season ranking right here. Okay, so that was my thoughts on all the new seasons. Quite the mixed bag. We started off horribly with 4 seasons of, well, that. But then it really started to pick up in the last 2 seasons when Andrew Brenner started to step in, proving that we can get some really good CGI content. So for part 4, the final part, we are going to be reviewing the remainder of the Brenner era, which I'm really excited for, and then all the Wubba seasons, which I'm really not excited for. Alright everyone, hope you guys have been enjoying this ranking series so far. We're almost done. And also, remember to subscribe. We're getting really close to 2,000. I say it every video, but like, come on, subscribe to boost my ego. I think I deserve it after this project. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys again soon in part 4. Take care.